Check it out, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. I have an incredible topic that I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm going to share this because I've been chatting with a few people online, and I was talking to them about how they doing, how's business going. And one of the main things they were talking about is they have to drop their price dramatically in order to make the sale. And I think that's a big mistake, especially if you have value, real value, and you believe in what you're doing. You shouldn't drop your price. So what I'm going to share with you today is something I've been doing for 30 years, and I might have dropped my price maybe once or twice in my life, and that's because I wanted a higher back end than the front end, so I was willing to do that. But typically I don't drop my price because there's a strategy I use that allows me to get the price I'm offering. And you always have to have value, or they have to see the value more than what they're actually going to invest in. So you have to learn how to use that. So now this works for any industry, any product that you're selling or services, whether you're a digital marketer, insurance company, whatever you sell, you should not have to drop your price or drop it that much if you really have something of value. Now, if you're trying to overprice, that's different. Then, you're cheating yourself out of the game. But now, if you're watching this on YouTube, and you want to follow me on this channel, just hit the subscription button below. If you like the video, hit the like button. Also, share your comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are so that I can continue to put the best content I can out there. Now, let's dig into this topic. How to sell your price without having to drop your price. I'm going to give you a little background so that I could take you to a path here. Now, my background is I'm a venture capitalist by trade. What does that mean? That means I'm a money raiser for over 30 years. I've taken companies public. I've done reverse mergers, acquisitions, IPO, which is initial public offering. I've raised private capital for companies that needed money, including my own companies. I've also did a lot of real estate transactions where I was the middleman. I raised the money from the investors, and I negotiated the real estate deal for the bank. So I was in the middle. I did really well. So I'm a high ticket item. Now, a while back when I got divorced in 2012, I had to start from scratch. I had to start over. And I got hired by a call center in Las Vegas. I never knew what a call center was. I always had a sales team. Never know what a call center was. Never needed one because I had salespeople. But anyway, they hired me. And they were selling advertising for classic cars. I said, okay, great, I'll try that. But the pricing they were selling it was between $100 and $500. I never sold anything less than $100,000. My biggest project was $351 million that I raised. So I couldn't grasp that. I was like, I don't get this. $100 to find out. How am I going to make money? I had to adjust. And so I was there for about a year and a half, and I did well. All the sales I made was $500. I could have probably made more sales if I would have dropped it to $200, but I refused to do that because I know I have value, and I got a lot of referrals because of it as well. But people will come up to me and says, Paul, why don't you drop your price and make more sales? I said, well, to be honest with you, you're selling 5 at $100 each. I sell 1 and I make $500. So if I sold 10 like you sold 10, I have 10 times the amount of money you make. So for me, it's always been a mindset. So I'm going to share this with you so that you could develop that same mindset. Now, when I sell, I break it down into 3 categories: the opening of the sale, the body of the sale, and then the closing of the sale. For me, closing is always in the beginning. It's always from the opening call. However you do your initial contact with your prospect, you have to be strong in your price and in your value. So keep that in mind. The first thing you have to do is you have to target qualified prospects or leads. Very important, especially in the beginning. Because if not, you're going to be chasing what I call window shoppers, tire kickers, and looky-loos. You want to target who they are. You want to get intimate who they are. and how you could solve their problem. So when you do the initial contact, you already have value when they speak with you. That's called perceived value. So in the opening of the contact, you got to have perceived value. You got to earn trust. You got to earn respect. In order to do that, you got to know who your prospect are. You have to know that. Stop chasing a lot of people. Focus on those that you can help right away. For example, for me, I target 5 or 6 industries: janitorial companies, security guard companies, landscapers, general contract remodelers, and pest control. Why? They all have bids. They all bid on jobs, and they all have contracts. And I know how to speak that language in each of those industries. I also work with digital marketers as well and some salespeople as well. But those are usually my 6 targeted audience. I know who they are. I know how to speak that language. I don't have to drop my price. So that's number 1. And that's in the opening of a call or a text message or an email, however you communicate. It's important that you have some perceived value. How can you have perceived value if you don't even understand who your customers are? It's very important you do that. Now, you transition to the second part of the call, where I call the body of the call or the artist storytelling. What you need to do in this part of the call or this part of the sale process is you got to qualify your prospect, qualify your leads. How do you do that? Through the questions, or what I call discovery questions. So in the opening, you earn trust, respect, and value. Now you got to increase that value and increase that trust by how you tell your story, how much conviction you have in what you're saying, how you handle their objections with your rebuttals. How good are you listening? Are you revealing to them the problems they have? The only way you can do that is you got to ask discovery questions. This is where you're going to qualify whether they can afford your product and services, where when you are going to ask for the order, you're going to have in your mind that you don't have to drop your price because they already qualify for it. Does that make sense? So in the body of it, before you get into the close, this is how you qualify your customer. I'm going to give you an example of how I do it with mine. You can do it the same with your customers or your prospect, whether you're a digital marketing company or a graphic design company. Whatever you do, whatever you're offering, you can implement this body, this strategy, this discovery process. Okay? I'm going to use janitorial. So what I do with a janitorial company, I ask a few questions. I say, well, what type of properties do you like? Do you like A-type property, B-type, C? Commercial properties are rated A, B, or C. Then I ask, what kind of square footage do you want? What geographic area you want to dominate? How many floors do you prefer? Do you do outdoor windows, indoor windows? What kind of service do you offer? I go through all of that. Then I ask them, how many current commercial clients do you have? Sometimes they have a lot, they don't remember. So I always do a lot of path of least resistance questions, doing the discovery questions, so that you can get answers to your questions, so that you know that if your price is in the range or not, right? So I go, Mr. Customer, what is your average contract for your customers? And let's say they don't know. Well, I don't know, Paul. Okay, great. Just give me a ballpark. I don't know. All right. Is it 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000? They usually go for the less one, which is the path of least resistance. Why is this important? 2 reasons why it's important. Let's say he goes with the path of least resistance, 20,000. Okay. And let's say they mentioned they have 30 commercial property clients. So you take 20,000 times 30, you know how much revenue they generate a year. Does that make sense? $6 million. Does that make sense? So, now, you go Mr. Client. Or I go Mr. Client. So, if I brought you 10 qualified customers every single month that you're looking for that meet your guideline, how many of those can you convert into a customer? They usually give me a high number, 80, 90%. What I do is I keep it simple. I said, Mr. Customer, let's just take the path of least resistance for argument's sake. Let's just say you convert 10% or 1. Let's say you get 1 every month. at $20,000 per contract. That's $20,000 in new business every single month, right? Yes. If you multiply that by 12 months, that's $240,000 in new business or new contracts a year, right? Great. If you know you could do that, and you know that I could bring you these customers to do that, how much are you willing to invest in your business so that you can generate an extra $240,000? Again, they may not give me an answer. They may be resistant to do that. I use the path of least resistance again. Is it 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000? Again, they'll usually take the path of least resistance, which means they can invest more if they had to. So, Mr. Customer, you're willing to invest $20,000 to generate an extra $240,000, which gives you 10 times return on your investment, right? Yes. Great. Is that capital, is that money liquid right now? Meaning, will the check clear if you needed to write it? Yes, Paul. Great. Now, why is that important? Number two is you know how much revenue they generate here. Number two is you know exactly how much liquidity they have available right now at any given time. So if your product or services is $10,000, do they qualify? Should you drop your price? If you're selling value more than what it costs, then you shouldn't have to drop your price. But if you don't sell the value and you're the value, then you're going to drop your price. So the value, they have to see the value more. They have to see that $240,000 in you. That's what they have to see. So now you know how not to drop your price. Think about that. What I do after I do that, I say, great, I got some great news for you, Mr. Customer. You don't have to invest $20,000 to generate $240,000. My price is only $5,000. Then I move on to the next step. So think about that. That is in the discovery question. That's where 90%, or in the body of the story, that's when 90% of the sales are made or lost. Right there. Does that make sense, guys? Has that been helpful? So if you're a digital marketer, you're having a hard time selling the services because they get a lot of these calls, and you have to show yourself different than anybody else because you're in a very competitive industry. Does that make sense? So now, the third thing is we're going to go to the closing. Okay? The closing is, for me, it happens in the opening. But the closing is you got to sell, and you have to do this in the body as well. You got to sell you. You're the value. You're the ticket. I always consider myself that. I'm the bridge between the product and the customer. Does that make sense? And you have to be able to do it through a straight line method. A straight line method is how do you go from the point A to point Z to make the sale. It's basically a sales process. I've been using a straight line method for 30 years and it works to perfection. As long as I work it and I stick to it. I created a strategy around that called social media conversion strategy. How to do the straight line method on social media. It works incredible. If you want to know more about it, direct message me. If you want to follow me so that you can know more about this, just hit the subscription button below and I'll get back with you in 24 hours. Now, you sell you. Then, when you get to the closing, you have to do what I call close-ending box close questions. Close-ending box close question. No matter what you're selling and what you're offering, I will use these three tie-down questions or box close questions. Mr. Customer, do you like the idea? Yes. Does the idea make sense? Yes. Do you truly understand the value and see the value that I'm offering to you? How it's going to solve your problem? How it's going to increase your revenue? Yes. Once they say that, you follow with this. How do you want to take ownership of this process? Or how do you want to start this? I always like to use ownership because people like to own. Does that make sense? Now, these three questions are psychological questions. You can't say you like the idea, but it doesn't make sense. Because if something doesn't make sense to me, I cannot like it. Do you? Let's say they say yes to the first one. Do you like the idea? Yes. Does it make sense? Yeah. Do you see the value and understand the value? No. Impossible. It's set up where there's only one right answer for these three questions. That's yes. And if you did your opening body correct, the closing is going to be easier. So you don't have to wiggle and negotiate your price. Now I'm going to give you a little advice here. Is we must, to make this work, you have to be assertive and aggressive. Most people are not assertive or aggressive. It may not be their personality. But guess what? You have to make it your personality. To me, selling, when I'm on the phone, like I'm on stage. I'm on the Broadway show. If I slip and fall in the show, there's no rehearsal. There's no timeout. There's no editing. I got to make it look like the show. Part of the show. So when I'm on the phone, I'm zoned in. I got to have conviction. I got to have confidence. They have to be persuaded. I have to be assertive with them. When it's time to push, I push. When it's time to back up, I back up. But you can't be afraid of that. Because most people feel that they're being too pushy, or they're insulting them, or they're offending them. No. No, if it's the right thing to do and it's for their best interest, you have to do it, because remember this. No one wants to be sold. No one wants to feel like they're being sold. But everyone likes to buy. Think about that. Because we only buy two ways. Either we want something or we need something. Your job is to get them to want what they need. Because when you need to do something, you fight it, you resist it. But when you want to do something, you just go with it. Right? So you have to understand the psychology to that, the emotional content to that. Does that make sense? So that's how you sell your price without having to drop your price. I could go a little bit deeper, but what I'm going to recommend and encourage you to do is follow me on this channel by hitting the subscription button below. If you like this video, please share your comments. Let me know your thoughts, and also share the video with others if you believe it can help other people. I want to thank you again for sharing your time. Thank you for being part of the martial arts of selling. Till we speak again, I say goodbye for now. Have a great day.